guys, and welcome to another Schematics update. This time we want to talk about Foundation, and for that I'm joined by BlindIRL and Jonty. Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So, we played a little bit of Foundation, each of us, and it's still in early access, that as full disclosure in the beginning, but maybe we can start with the easiest question we have here. What the hell is Foundation?
It's an excellent foundation for what will probably be a really cool game in about a year. And I like this game, I need to be clear, but it's very early.
We should have took bets on how quick we got the Foundation gag in there, because I was planning on it, to be honest.
Well, I win.
Yeah, I agree with that though. It's very early access. It is pretty bare bones still, but I agree with Blind, and to pardon the pun, there is a very good foundation there for a good game, I think.
And all of the viewers have tuned out now, so the rest can just be like 20 minutes of silence. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Anyways.
Okay, so now that we know it's a great foundation for a game, but what's the game about?
So it's a city builder. I'd maybe say more of a settlement builder.
Yeah.
Town builder. But as we talked about in our recent Anno 1800 video, there are different subgenres of city builder. This one is very freeform. The big selling point of this one is of how freeform it is. You don't actually place down any sort of residencies. Mm-hmm. You just map an area on the map, I guess, and the little civs, I think they call them. Serfs will kind of go and do their own thing and build houses where they can. And the freeform nature, personally, is the biggest selling point to me. It's a really refreshing look at the genre, to be honest. That has, for the most part, stayed within a grid-based system for probably a little bit too long now.
With the exception of City Skylines, most city builders are pretty kind of locked down and uniform. This one will let you clip anything into anything, and I don't even know if that's intended or not, but you can just you could probably build all of your major buildings on the same spot, and assuming the doors are sticking out and they can get into the building, they'll all just function perfectly. So you could quite literally place all of your buildings in a single square and everything will function relatively all right.
I didn't even think of doing that. So there's no collision for the buildings you place down.
Nope.
Wow.
I was clipping buildings together and making big buildings out of 4 different buildings. It's pretty cool, actually, if you do it right.
Sounds a little bit like a bug, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Or just a not implemented feature yet.
I mean, considering the camera, if you just fly to the edge of the screen, you can just fly off into infinity.
Right.
And the game doesn't seem to care. Also, there's no limit on how tall you can make the modular buildings. There's modular construction in this game, and if you can just make them tall enough, the game will eventually crash.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's neat. So, talking about the modular construction then, let's go into a bit of detail with that there, because again, that's another sort of key feature of the game. So, a lot of the sort of baseline buildings, your very sort of standard medieval city building stuff, you get your lumberjack, you get your stonemason.
Your gathering sites.
Yeah, you move then on from hunter-gatherers, although I don't think hunting's fully implemented yet. Then you move on to your processes, so you've got the stone gets turned into bricks, your wood gets turned into planks, you can start making wheat into bread and things like that. All of those buildings are pretty much just place them down, good to go. But what they call monuments in the game, your sort of key buildings, so things like military keeps, churches, your own castle. Eventually, I think you start off with a keep. Those sort of larger buildings are all modular, so they all have a base building that they call the core that has to go down, and then most of them have a couple of other things that need to be in place as well. Like a door, for instance, like you just said. But then for the most part, you're able just to sort of stick bits on. And it works really quite well. Sort of stick extra little doors on and towers. And like you say, you can drag the towers up. And it's really quite a neat feature.
There's a little box that you can check that will let you just kind of stick them anywhere. So towers don't even need to be connected. So you can take the main base core for, say, a church, and then put a bell tower onto it, and then take another bell tower and just disconnect it and put it a couple feet away from the actual building itself and just have a random tower there. It's pretty neat, especially when you get to the later buildings like the monastery, which is currently the biggest building you can build. it has so many different pieces, it's a little bit crazy. And I'm kind of really looking forward to things that they add in the future, or if this game ever gets like workshop or mod support and people can just add custom stuff to this could be a really cool little system for building incredibly complex, like labyrinthine nightmare buildings.
Yeah, I think you could really start to go to town. And like you say, it's really open. You can have stuff going up the side of cliffs, and you can make really tall towers with little bits sticking off them. And the one thing I really like, and I didn't quite realise to start off with, but in many cases, all of that information feeds back into the simulation as well.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you place down a church, the church will look after 25 people, I think it is. So up to 25 people can go in there for a service. But if you just drag this church out, make it bigger, stick a few more towers on, it'll take 40 people. So it's not just a visual thing. The actual size and scope of the buildings actually feeds back into the numbers as well, which is really quite sweet.
The upkeep and the rent also goes up.
And you can also change them after you build them.
Yeah.
I think you can add stuff on, but I don't think you can edit things that are built.
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to change something that's built, you'd have to get rid of it and start again.
Yeah.
But you can keep sticking bits on, which is kind of what I've done with my church. It's got to a point now where I think I need to start over and build it fresh, because at the moment it looks a little bit like, well, I don't know what it looks like. It's got like bits stuck onto it, bell towers coming out the sides of it and stuff.
I realized that there is not a lot of guideline in the game yet. There is a little text tutorial which basically tells you, yeah, you have to plop down the city center at first and then continue with resource stuff that you need, but that's about it.
I think that's all the game really needs right now. There isn't really that much going on. Like, you know, the game has 5 maps and they're preset, and the starting points are set so that you know that you have what you need, and the building order is always going to be the same. For me, it took maybe like 30 minutes of trial and error, and I was very much able to figure out kind of exactly what I needed to do. The hard thing for me with the game right now is, we have a topic for this later on, but the UI is very placeholder in a lot of places. And I think that's where actually the majority of the trickiness comes from. I don't think the game needs a tutorial right now, straight up. There isn't enough in the game for it to be super needed, especially if you're buying into a game like this. You kind of realize what you're getting into.
But as far as the tutorial goes, I mean, a little nod in the right direction isn't really a problem, I think, which is fine, you know. But yeah, you kind of, you know, these all games all start the same. You always start with wood. You cut down wood. You use those logs to build a stone mason, and then use those stones and those logs to build the next level of building, you know, and so on and so forth.
Right.
The only major problem I had with this game regarding like the start off zone and stuff is that you are allowed to pick where you begin on the map. I think this has been patched now, though, to be honest with you, but I do want to talk about it because I think it was an interesting issue. You pick where you start, and then very short way into the game, some of the buildings need tools to be produced. Now you can eventually make those tools yourself with a blacksmith, but that's gated a little bit further down. So the only way you can get tools to start off with is to set up a trade route, and a little dude with like a backpack on his back will come every now and again and will sell you tools basically, and in return will buy stuff if you've got excess wood or whatever. The problem is, because you can pick wherever you want to go on the map, on a couple of levels there's a river that runs through the map. If you set up on the wrong side of the river, the trade guy spawns on the other side of the river, and he's got no way of getting across.
Yeah, he just runs under the water now.
So, well, there you go. There's the fix. Because when I was playing it, it was no problem. So I got in touch with the developers, and the developers said, well, you can build a bridge, and the bridge will get across. So I went back into the game, and I was like, oh, okay, build a bridge. Oh, yeah, there it is. But the zone I had to start off with wasn't actually on the river. So I couldn't actually build the bridge. So I went back to the developers and told that, and they went, oh, no, you can build bridges anywhere on the map. I was like, well, that's the sort of thing that the game should tell me, because I ended up restarting, thinking I'd just been really unlucky with how the spawnings had worked. But no, apparently you can build bridges anywhere on the map, and it's the only item that you can do it with. All the other buildings have to be within your sort of zone of influence that you can expand later on. So in some ways, these games do need a little bit of a bit of a point in the right direction at some points, because that was a really weird use case.
I had sort of similar thing. I ran into issues when you have these random in air quotes events pop up where it gives you the choice if you want to give the resources to your people, to the king, and to whatever it is,
the clergy,
or keep it to yourself. At first it asked me for berries, I think 30 berries in 60 days, and I was looking at my resources, and I'm like I have 80 berries. Sure, I give it to him.
But they have to be in a warehouse, don't they?
They have to be in a warehouse, and
Yeah.
if they are in a warehouse, there's a green check mark behind deliver the 30 berries to the king that you need to click. So they are delivered. And I was sitting there waiting for the freaking trader guy to pick them up and deliver them to the king, and failed the request because I didn't know I had to click the check mark.
Yeah.
Maybe that's on me.
It's the UI.
If I'm so stupid.
The game doesn't hold your hand at all, and the UI is horrific. But to be honest with you, the developers have said, it's an early access UI, and it is going to get a complete overhaul, and it needs one. It's awful at the moment. Not only looks, just kind of how it works, how you get into certain menus, just how certain things are put together. I'm still don't really understand how a warehouse works. In the warehouse, you have 4 slots in a warehouse, and you can set the slot to either fill up of whatever item you select or accept whatever item you select. I don't really understand fully what the difference between those two are. I don't know if you guys do.
I think if you fill it up, they will max out the amount in there, and then will not empty it out unless you take it off of the fill up. So they will only take items out if it is full.
Right.
So it will fill all the way up to the maximum spot, and then they'll start taking one out and putting one back, taking one out, putting one back.
So you can make it a buffer, basically.
If you accept, they will just put it there, and if you decline, then they will empty it out. Or you can just remove the item in entirety. I think that's how that works.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's after 20 hours of screwing around with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that we shouldn't really have to think. There should be. It's just tooltips, and there's a lot of tooltips, I think, added in.
And another really glaring issue that this game has is whenever you later on you'll get asked to send troops out to war, and it's to send 5 troops out, and it's always Envoy asks for you to send your soldiers to city_name, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Fun stuff like that. And, my chat's been memeing about beverage_title and city_name.
A lot of very early access. I think it's pretty timely that this came just after the Anno beta.
Yeah.
Because even though the Anno is a very late beta and the game's coming out in a couple of months, it's a real stark difference. This is proper early access. This is there's no denying. This isn't an advertising campaign. This is, we need you to test the hell out of this game so we know where to go next.
Break it and show it.
Yeah.
I think the iconography is pretty bad, honestly, because for most parts I can't tell what it is. I needed to hover over the icon for fish to know that it's fish, because for me it looks like a gray stick, and I was like, what the fuck is the gray stick, and how do I get it?
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. They're all sort of like really small little pixel images, and personally, because the game art style is really sort of chunky and voxel, and I think it needs a big chunky UI to go with it. I mean, obviously, I don't mean that it should take over the screen, but I think images like that, they all need to be like, they're really sort of vibrant, solid images of the items, as opposed to these little weird little pixel images that they are now. I think they should embrace I think the art style of the actual game is really quite good. I love the sort of really just like chunky look to it, and I think that needs to be moved across into the UI as well.
It's funny because they do have a UI scale, and I've been using 2x scale UI, which makes it look even worse because the images don't have higher resolution versions, so then they get all pixely and smudgy, and some of the text doesn't fit, but then I can actually read it.
Yeah, I've been playing at 1.5. 1's too small for me.
I think they realize that their UI is one of the things that needs work the most. I mean, they've addressed as much. They've put out some fixes for the UI, and they'll continue working on it. And the game is doing quite well right now, and I think that's pretty noticeable when a game like this pops up and is doing well and is getting some buzz. So I have a feeling that most of these issues will get resolved.
Talking about issues, Blind, you had some performance issues in air quotes?
So I haven't had performance issues per se. I mean, the game does get a little bit framey when you have a large city, and this is, by large city, I mean building multiples of the biggest buildings in the game. So I don't really have a problem with that. It certainly runs better than the Anno 1800 beta, and certainly, just as far as I'm concerned, for what it is it runs about what I expect. The problem that I have is, if you have a whole lot of buildings being constructed at once, by that I mean a whole lot. I built 9 markets, at once because I was trying to fix some food problems and my game crashed. I restarted the same save and it crashed again in the same spot when I clicked confirm. At which point I kind of said, you know what, I'm gonna call it for the day on this game. And that was after 7 hours of play, I should mention. But I think it does have some crashiness when you get into larger cities, and I've heard reports of people with 300-400 population cities that do encounter issues. I did report these bugs directly to the developer, and I also uploaded my save. So they should hopefully have that. It's a little unstable with larger cities, but that's about it. In general, I think the game runs pretty much fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a few frame stutters, but it's very early access. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Right. I think it's just for the audience out there to point out it's really early access. You may encounter some issues, like for instance, it might break your save files. Yep. As I heard.
Please report bugs as well. If you encounter them, send that bug report, because that's what you're buying into at this point. You're buying into helping a developer.
So let's come to our conclusion, guys. The game currently is $24.29 at 10% off in British pounds and $26.99 at 10% off in dollars, US dollars, and euros.
And $33.99 CAD.
You got screwed again.
Yeah, well.
But we got screwed as well. In Euroland, we pay like 30 US dollars. Anyway, my question is, by now, wait till there's more? Wait for release?
I think that if you are starving for this kind of game, you really want a new Settlers-like game, if you want another city builder, if you really liked Banished and want to play something like that, I think there's a lot of fun to be had here for sure. I think that we've made this joke too many times, so let's continue beating a dead horse. The foundation is there. This is going to be what I think is probably a really cool game in the future. I don't know if they have plans to discount it. Some early access games literally never go on sale. I know they're having the launch sale right now. But yeah, if you consider yourself somebody who really wants this kind of game, absolutely hop in. But if you're even slightly tentative about some of the issues that we've talked about, just leave it in the wish list. I had somebody ask me the other day while I was streaming this if it was worth it to hop in right now or if they should just buy an Endless Legend. And I was like, you know what, just buy Endless Legend because you'll get way more time out of Endless Legend. Endless Legend is a fantastic game. So if you're between this and something else that's out already, maybe go for the game that's out already. But it's definitely an easy wishlist recommendation and definitely a game to watch. I'm sure we'll do videos updating on it, and this game's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I think the key thing you said there is that this is going to be a good game. To be honest with you, that you said everything I would have said anyway.
Okay, cool. So let's wrap this up, guys. First of all, I want to thank Jonty and Blind for joining and talking about the foundation of Foundation, the game, with me. And if you like this video, don't forget to smash the hit button and hit the smash button. And if you really enjoyed this video, you may want to consider doing the extra step over to Coffee to buy our editor at Coffee, because his king, so basically me and Blind, demands tribute and he really needs to pay, and he got no money because we don't pay him for editing. So you need to do this, so help him out, please. Anyway, guys, see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, goodbye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.